Bonnie.
Oh, Bonnie, come back. So
She's eating. She doesn't want to be seen.
fair enough. Fair enough. So this is, in fact, Eileen's happy hours for January 16th, but Eileen couldn't make it today, and she knew this. And a couple of weeks ago in the GLIP community said that I was going to be taking over today, and she instructed in public what I was going to talk about. So here I am talking about what she said, which is leading a talk on why positive affirmations are important, and then helping you create your own. And I actually am delighted that she said that, because she did post some positive affirmations in the GLIP community, and a few people said, wow, that's great, and they posted them, and then another couple of people said, that's not working for me. And this is one of the areas that I've been researching for the book that I'm writing for the Creative Academy. So this is one of those things that I've often struggled with. So do you, Cynthia and Bonnie, do you actually write affirmations ever? Have you?
I just steal them.
Okay.
I don't actually write my own.
I repeat them in my head. Written.
You just need to hear it. Actually, that's something that's really interesting
in
too.
My voice.
In your voice. Yeah. Okay, so when you say them, you're saying them in the I voice, not the you voice?
Yeah.
What about you, Cynthia? Do you use the I or the you?
You.
Okay. You use you. Okay. So really interesting. I used to read these things and they would say you, and I always thought, well, that's kind of lame. Like, it should be I, not like, who am I speaking to? I'm not.
I don't care about you. Sorry.
Except that tons of research has been done on this, like from the most interesting different areas. Voter actions is one area that some researchers have worked on, and they found that when people, and there is some rationale behind this too, but when people declare that they're going to vote, I'm going to vote, versus people who say you are going to vote, so they see themselves going to vote in a third person settings, like they visualize themselves doing that, as opposed to walking themselves there in their visualization, voter turnout is way, way higher when they make that statement as a you statement, because they've determined that they see themselves as part of something larger, and they become the kind of person who goes to vote, and that has more strength for the action. And they also found that it gives them more, when challenges come up, like, oh, rats, I can't find a ride, the people who had used the affirmation of I am going to go to vote didn't try as hard to find a way to overcome that challenge. So I was like, that's really interesting. And Bonnie's shaking her head, and it doesn't always work that way.
I'm not shaking my head. I'm just going, interesting.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, that's just crazy.
I actually see the logic in that. Yeah. For me, anyway, using the you is, it insinuates that there's someone else who's holding me accountable. And for me, a lot of times it's, somebody I know, like my grandmother, for instance, if it sort of echoes something that she might have said. So I feel like there are eyes on me, and so I feel a bit more assured of success.
That is exactly how I've started to feel as well. So Bonnie, what were you just saying?
That's the reason I use the I. I am accountable for my own happiness. I am accountable for my success, not anybody else. So I just really, everything's internal. I don't know. Maybe it's the way you're brought up. Maybe it's...
Yeah, and so... Yeah, and what's worked for you? And if I go back, because I love this stuff, and I'm not an expert in it, so I can only regurgitate all that I've absorbed on it. And so lots and lots of research. And one of the things that another set of researchers found, that the first person visualization, when we're using I, it actually connects more to emotions and feelings. And then the third person, when you're in that observer status, that is most effective if you're actually trying to get away from negative feelings, because it's less about those feelings. So one of the things that they determined was, so there was this, different research was showing different results. And so somebody went and did, I guess, a meta study, or they actually were able to go and look at, well, what makes a difference between I working for Bonnie and you working for Cynthia? And this may not be the case for you too, but that was kind of the premise of it. And it's, if you have had success in a certain area and you can draw on that knowledge, saying things like, the story I'm telling has value, because you know that you've written a story of value, that has more resonance than the story you're telling has value, because you're just drawing on what you already know. And if you don't, if you're trying to overcome the negative, like if you've not been a consistent writer and you say, I'm a consistent writer, that voice in your head is going to go, yeah? In what lifetime? So what they've found is that if you then say you are a consistent writer, and you can take that energy from the grandmother's voice, from someone else's voice, and literally visualize yourself as the kind of person who does that, then your success rates are much higher. So that's one of the main distinctions between when I works and when you works, which I thought was really interesting. You're basically seeing yourself how other people can perceive you, and that gives you that kind of motivation and energy. Well,
that's awesome. Is there anything about like positive people versus negative people? Like some people just are naturally more positive and look at the glass half full, and other people are naturally a little more negative and notice all the negative stuff. Would they maybe use different techniques?
I've not seen anything that's drawn those two, but that sure makes sense to me. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you, Cynthia? Leslie, hello, Leslie.
Hello. I think that I am a very positive person for everybody but me. So I have a whole new classification.
All right. So I'm curious now. So when Bonnie, what you missed was Bonnie, when she writes affirmations, or uses affirmations, she uses the I voice. So give us an example of one of those, Bonnie.
I will become successful at writing.
I will become successful at writing. And Cynthia, you looked up at your wall. What's one of the ones that you have?
Oh, come as you are. Come as you are.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so, and the difference, Leslie, is first person versus third person, and when certain ones work. And I think you're one of the people who said that the first person affirmations weren't working for you as well as you would have liked. Is that right? She's muted.
I have them all on my wall. I write them out. I tell myself, and then I get a rejection, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. None of that's true. So I have to learn to just go, oh, another rejection, so what?
Well, okay, or yes, you definitely have to learn another rejection. I love Catherine Wagner's idea of she had redefined her goal. She had redefined her goal for the year from submitting 100 short stories in 2019 to receiving 100 rejections in 2019. So that, I mean, I'm not 100% sure of the logic, but to me, I think that's what that's saying is, like, you're
putting yourself out there.
Times. Yeah, that's right. You're really going to put yourself out there. So one thing, so Leslie, if you can see yourself as an observer would see you, as you would see you if you were talking to somebody else, using a third person affirmation might do better than the I am a good writer. You are a good writer. So one thing that, and you can watch the replay to see the first 10 minutes.
Okay, sorry.
But one thing that I was wanting to do, because Eileen said that we were going to do things here, not just have me talk, was do an exercise, which I'm going to actually do with you. I haven't done it in advance. And it's to think about what your inner critic is telling you right now about your writing habit or the quality of your writing or something that leaves you feeling kind of meh or ugh. The thing that makes you feel uncertain about your writing and feeling like you actually need an affirmation. And I want you to write for 2 minutes in the first person. So I'm going to give you an example. Here's one that's not related to writing, but first person self-talk. I'm afraid that I won't get a job if I mess up during an interview, and I always mess up in some way. I never know what to say, and I'm always incredibly nervous. I end up in a feedback loop of nervousness, causing bad behaviors, causing nervousness, and even if I get the job, I think I'd still be afraid of interviews. Even if I got a job, I think I'd still be afraid of interviews. So for me, I'm gonna, my little voice is you're not an expert, so why should anyone listen to you? So I forgot my phone over there. Does someone have a phone handy?
For a timer?
For a timer, for a 2-minute timer? No? Bonnie, do you have a 2-minute timer? No. Okay.
I got one.
You got one? Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah. Let me just get it up here.
You're gonna, oh, I love it, Bonnie. So I'm going to type. When. All right. So we are all going to write for 2 minutes. First person self-talk. That is what you need some confidence around. Okay. All right.
Ready?
Go.
Go.
That's a long 2 minutes. Ta-da! Thank goodness. That felt really long. Did that feel wrong?
I wouldn't leave you out there.
Oh my God. Oh, I know you wouldn't, but it's like, I was like, holy cow. I'm not going to ask you to share. But what I would love, Leslie, were you able to do that?
I did. I
Okay.
did. I had to do a mom intervention, but I did it. But I did it.
And Bonnie, you were writing too. Okay. And the only reason I'm asking is because you're so backlit. It's a lovely window that we're seeing. It's all good. It's all good. All right. So now,
very beautiful. You can see it's all hoarfrost.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What kind of person says nice to frost?
It's pretty.
Someone who's been in the rain for the past 6 weeks.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So the next step to help you determine, if it's not already clear to you, whether or not first person self-talk or non-first person self-talk, otherwise known as third person self-talk, is going to be more beneficial to you, is to take that same challenge. Okay, let me ask you, did 2 minutes feel like the right amount of time, or did it feel like you were stretching? Would 90 seconds be better, or is 2 minutes good? Can I get a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Well,
I was okay with 2.
Yeah, I was okay with 2.
Okay. Well, okay. So we'll stick with 2 minutes. And I want you to take that same issue and write it in a non-first person. And the example based on the previous one is, You worry too much about what other people think. You need to focus on what needs to be done and what you can do to execute it. The simple fact that other people will be around does not change what you need to do. Focus on you and you'll be fine. So that would be, and that was the example for that one. So now take your own issue, challenge, and do the third person self-talk. So you're standing outside talking to yourself. Let us know.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Go. Five-second countdown.
Ta-da.
That's it.
Thank you, Cynthia, so much. Okay, so now what I would love to know is if anybody has, what did you learn? That's the big question here. What did you learn?
I learned that I need the second person. I need that voice in my head to give me a lecture. Like those ones worked. I just felt way more like, yeah, okay, you're right. I do. Whoever you are, I believe you. So yeah, they worked. And I kept hearing Bonnie's voice, but that's okay.
That's so great. That's lovely.
Yeah, no, that totally works better for me, Donna. Thank you.
So when you're writing your affirmations then, Leslie, the ones that Eileen shared were all written in the I. Switch those around to you and see if that helps. And I want to come back. There's one other thing. I want to check in with you, Cynthia and Bonnie, but I just want to write something down, which is, okay, so that I don't forget. Bonnie, what about you? Did that process do anything for you?
Well, I feel like I was confused on the process because I thought that we were supposed to write about what was all negative and then we would then turn it around with our positive things. So I misunderstood the process. So of course all the I's were negative because I was writing down what I'm feeling now. And then when you said to do the you, I was like, okay, I can either write this in the negative again or well, so I misunderstood the.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't misunderstand, though. What are you thinking?
No, because I kept wanting to put affirmations, and I kept changing them to what is it that's bothering me right now. So I had to keep changing it to be what the negative was that's bothering me instead of, you know, like I wrote, I'm lost. And I immediately thought, well, no, you're not lost. You just, you're overwhelmed. So, you know, that sort of thing. So it didn't matter whether I did it in the I or you. It was the same sort of thing. So I just thought, fine, I'll write in the you with that other voice that was in my head.
I actually would challenge that a little bit, Bonnie, because I think it's a natural thing when you say I'm lost. and you flipped over and said, you're
Right.
not lost, you're whatever,
No, but
you know,
normally
whatever the rest of that thought was. But I think that that's a natural part of this sort of
I agree.
switch in thinking, is that if you're hanging around I am, then that can just become this negative sort of spiral. But when you're actually not lost, you're on your way to whatever, you just haven't made the right turn, or I don't know, whatever. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's
But
part of
naturally, I would have done, I'm not lost. I know I'm not lost. I'm just
it's the
feeling
secret
overwhelmed.
magic in this.
Yeah.
So you really want to keep it in the I. That's
I do.
really interesting. Like that's kind of the resistance.
I mean, I can do it in both. And both the same like feeling that you get from saying it, but
yeah, interesting.
I just feel like I'm more in control of my destiny, and I'm tired of the world taking it over. So I'm not going to give it any control. I'm giving it to you.
I wish I could get to that place, Bonnie. I love that you are like that.
No. My husband says that means that I'm not very willing to accept help.
Huh. And do you? Well, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to go there.
No, I've been learning. 6 years of marriage. I've been learning.
Cynthia, what about you for the process?
So my well, there's definitely a difference in tone, and I think in framing between the two sides of my paper, the I side and the you side. And the you is much more in keeping with my sort of way of thinking than I.
Right. Which is consistent with the way you've already been doing your affirmations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. One thing that you said, Bonnie, I think at the very beginning was that you don't write them down and you just say them inside your head, your affirmations, right?
Yeah.
This was really interesting. Last week, I got news that a grant application that I had applied for my work in progress was rejected. And I didn't actually see the letter. I called the post office, and the postmistress opened it for me, and she read the first, actually, I don't know, it's somewhere on my desk, but when she read the first thing, thanks for your application, and then the next word was unfortunately, I was like, okay, I don't need to hear anymore. Like, you don't need to read anymore. And it was 10 or 15 minutes before the mastermind group that I was facilitating. And so I sent an email off to the people in the mastermind group, the little one that I was facilitating, because 2 of them had also applied, and one had gotten it and one hadn't gotten it. So I was just reporting in like, so now I've got my news too. And that was fine. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I sent an email to Crystal and Eileen and Amanda, who had edited my application. And I was like, okay, well, at least the process made me much more clear on where my book was going. Like, it really helped me. Doing the application really helped me there. And then I sent a note to my husband. It was like, well, I guess we're not going to Cuba. And I was fine. And then I got into the mastermind, and Jen Summersby, who is one of the people she's the person who got the grant. She said, oh, I'm so sorry that you didn't get it. And as soon as it was said out loud, I started to cry. I was like, oh, and I was like, where in the world did that come from? And it was like, I was fine until it was said out loud. And I was talking to, pardon?
The spoken word has power.
It does. And I was talking to Eileen and Crystal after that, because we are in a different mastermind group. So there are 7 of us in that one. And Crystal was talking about the whole science behind saying things out loud, and how she's a health psychologist. So the whole process of grieving and all of, and not that there's a whole lot of grief with this, but when you get bad news, it takes a few times of hearing it and saying it out loud before you can process it. So if we take that, my point of this is, and turn it around to
positive.
That's right, to saying things out loud so that we actually hear them. And, there's definitely power in that. And one other thing that I was reading to do with something entirely to do with the manuscript, not to do with the sex, religion, and politics book I'm working on, is around language as well, and how I don't know who the study was done by, but somebody has asserted that by the time a child is 8 years old, they have had 25,000 linguistic kind of programs put into them based on what they hear over and over and over. And those programs become our beliefs. So the more we hear something, the more likely it is that we're going to believe it. And if we're going to unprogram those beliefs, and you know what we all grew up with was, you're never going to make writing is a crazy career, right? You're never going to make it as a writer. All of those things that we've heard over and over and over, and even read over and over today, we have to start countering those with hearing the opposite. So,
can I share one of those? Because
yes.
This is really true. So I grew up very close to my mother's sister and her children. And my mother's sister, from the time I think I was born, said to me, "You're so pretty, you look just like your Aunt Molly," which that was her. And I grew up, she was blonde and blue-eyed, and I grew up with blonde hair. My mother is dark hair, and my brothers are dark hair. And I didn't think I was my mother's daughter for a long, long time, because I believed that I looked just like my Aunt Molly. She brainwashed me, but it like manifested itself.
Right.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious, and it's kind of scary. Like, yeah. So like, well, anyway, not the place to talk about it, but all of this research is just, reminding me that even though we have, like, in my brain, I will share this, because in my brain, I know that masturbation is neither sinful nor dangerous to anybody's health. What I have learned and what my body holds is this, like, if-then sequence of beliefs that goes from, quite honestly, without all the steps in belief, if my husband masturbates, then I am going to be alone at age 60 because of all the different if-thens that come before, and I'm going to get some horrible disease because I'm going to become like honestly, it's ridiculous, and yet it's so much part of my body that I feel nauseous when I think about it.
Wow.
So body, from all the messages from, growing up in a very conservative family.
I'm religious, but it's the same.
And society too, like, just all around us. It's something that, so, and that's an extreme example, but I think it can also be applied. I believe it also is applied to all of these things that we love to do and that we might not have the positive support externally and internally for. So that is what I wanted to talk about. What over to you.
That almost is like stand-up comedy. You realize that?
Is it?
Well, because you just talked about masturbation and then you just followed it with, that was all I wanted to talk about. So I think that could be somebody's stand-up
all right, well,
joke.
And isn't that person who didn't attend today going to be disappointed to have missed it?
No doubt.
He could have
The man.
You with masturbation.
That's right.
Male perspective on that.
And will Eileen ever ask me to host a happy hours ever again?
That's right.
Probably.
Only if she watches.
That's right.
No doubt.
So anyway, in terms of affirmations, I hope, that's a little bit interesting, if not.
It's very interesting.
That's nice.
Well, I'm just going to keep saying them over and over and over and over and over until some little snippet sticks in my brain and I start to believe it. So reprogram the neural pathways.
Exactly.
I found an interesting exercise, and I do this when I get looped in the negative thoughts. Is that I start out with the negative thought. I write this down, and then I just keep trying to write it. And my logical brain goes in going, well, no, that's not true. Oh, no, that's not true. And so it keeps modifying it as you try to write the same sentence. And eventually you get the truth out, which is,
interesting.
And it's just a way of breaking the loop, because
Like what is causing
like
that
said,
negative
your
thought,
mind
right?
knows something, but your body is stuck and set in this pattern. So one that I'm working with my counselor is that, and it comes from my childhood, life does not have to be difficult to be worthy. Because
sorry, I have to go.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of trials and tribulations in life, and so I have that pattern in my brain, and I find it affects everything. Writing does not have to be hard to be worthy, and so these sort of things I have to keep reminding myself, and sometimes I have to start with, like, right now I'm lost, I don't know what to do next. And if I took that sentence and tried to write it again and again, I would go, I'm not really lost, I do know what to do next. I just find it hard. No, it doesn't have to be hard. You could break it down into littler steps that are easier, and it just progresses to finally, you can do this, or I can do this, whichever, because I actually flip back and forth when we started talking about those. I mean, yeah, I use you or I guess it just depends on whether I believe it inside or whether I don't. And if I don't, then the you works better.
And that's exactly,
I already believe it.
that's what the science tells us is true. So you're a normal human being, Bonnie.
Oh, goody. I don't feel very normal some days.
Hi, Marianne. So yeah, one of the things that was really interesting, following up on that, oh my gosh, when we were setting, I guess it was maybe that same day that Eileen had posted affirmations, and the one that I tried to write down, and I was just looking to see if my journal was here, but it's not. The one that I wrote down was, I am self-confident. And first of all, I wrote, I am confident. And I thought, well, no, that's not it. It's, I am self-confident. And when I went to write, I am self-confident, I wrote the word self. And then when the word confident, I misspelled it 3 times. Like I couldn't write the phrase, I am self-confident, which of course made my whole body go, oh my God. And I was like in this emotional, I can't believe how not self-confident I am. Right. And so I told,
which made you feel even less self-confident.
Which made me feel even less self-confident. So of course what I do is I get on and I'm with Crystal and I'm going, and one of the 2 of them said, just write it until you believe it. And I wrote a full page of I am self-confident without making a single typo. And it's like, okay, I'm not as much of a basket case as I was in that 1 minute, right? But it's true. Like to have to write it over and over to start to believe it. Marianne, you can turn your voice on, can't you?
It is on.
Okay.
But is this recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, so not turning the picture on.
Okay.
Why not? You're beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I slept late and I made porridge, and then I was just talking to John and I forgot to come. Anyway.
So you were saying, though, it's not your fault, it's the patriarchy, the entire history of human thought and language stacked against it.
After we said goodnight last night, Donna, I was reading about the 20th century French philosophy. All of it.
Light reading before bed?
And I kept, I was on Wikipedia and I kept clicking and following these rabbit holes down and reading about everybody from Descartes to Derrida and Beauvoir to Cixous and all of this stuff. And I realized that everything that I studied in architecture school was very closely related to these different trends in intellectual thought, and how philosophy permeates everything from politics, whether it's education and healthcare, to design theory and criticism, to everything else about our society and the way we think about our society, including the different political parties, including what's happening in the United States right now and all this stuff, and literature and literary theory and criticism. And once you start digging into that, then you can't even, me personally, I cannot pretend I don't know that anymore, or that my awareness hasn't been raised about it anymore. So then I started thinking about post-structuralism and deconstructivism and feminist thought and literary criticism, and then holy crap, then I can't even think straight anymore.
Okay, wait, I feel like I'm back in the worst class I ever took in university, communications degree, the one that I didn't understand at all. How does that relate to your own ability to feel confident in the work that you're doing, you're writing?
Well, for the most part, I don't have intellectual or literary ambitions, but I do have a functioning brain, and I am a thinking feminist human. And so I can't, and I think that because of what I write, which is nonconformist romantic women's fiction, that I'm always on some level thinking about feminist questions of identity and belonging and our role in society and all of these things, right? So when I am introduced to these ideas that tell me that everything right down to the language that we choose and how it affects our mental constructs, these false dichotomies, male, female, mind, body, it starts to unravel everything that I know, and then the stories and why I'm writing them and how I'm writing them and the language I choose and the characters that I
create. I'm going to stop you now because that's huge. I want to just come back a little closer. It is huge. But you just said something that is really interesting, and I want to get, like, Leslie, Marianne just said something about false dichotomies. What does that make you think? Because I see sometimes in what you're saying, just the way you express this challenge, this conflict, maybe that's false dichotomies. Like, maybe the truth of your writing isn't here or here. It's something entirely different on either on the spectrum or over here. Does that make sense to you? No. No. Okay.
Have you guys read Simone de Beauvoir?
I understand what you're asking.
Fair enough. So
have you guys read Simone de Beauvoir?
I'm not deep enough.
No, it's not that you're not deep enough. No, that's intellectual. And what we're talking about today, Marianne, is yes, Simone de Beauvoir. I have not, but what the office hours is more about is around affirmations and, like, the I and the you, and where we can find the power to start to believe in ourselves that way. And what you're saying isn't not
society
relevant.
Is creating this conflict we have between what we maybe want to believe and what we think the world is telling us. Right.
And I think that what you're saying, Marianne, is relevant, although it's intellectually higher than my hand can reach in the sky for me. But with you, Leslie, what I was thinking was this dichotomy. You know, I don't know what your affirmation is or what the belief is that you're trying to overcome. But sometimes it's like I know in my own it's like it doesn't have to be I am always self-confident. So I can say I am self-confident.
Without having to
always be self-confident. It's not that I am self-confident or I have no confidence. The truth is somewhere. Exactly. So there's not that dichotomy. That's what I took out of what Marianne was saying.
Right.
It actually doesn't.
Either or.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So all I'm asking you is if you can see that there's within your own self-talk, maybe there's somewhere in the middle that
is more acceptable.
That's more self-loving too. That's more self-accepting. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry to cut you off, Marianne.
I'm working on it.
We're all working on it. How many times will you see me cry in the Creative Academy before the year is out? We should actually, that would be so funny. Let's drink every time someone cries.
Yeah, it'll be a new drinking game.
Put our video off.
That's right.
Go. You
You go. No fair.
See, Bonnie just turned her video off.
I know.
Now, every time anyone does that, you're going to think they're crying. I've said it in your brain.
Well done. All right. So, any other thoughts on this?
Nope.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing thing. It's like doing anything else in your life, any self-care, you have to keep at it on a daily basis. You just have to keep at it.
I was just reading some blogger yesterday. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Somebody had posted a link to his blog in Glip. And
Chuck
Wendig, yeah.
Right.
And did you read that? So he doesn't hold himself as an expert.
I'm not sure if I read that one, but
it was part of what he was saying was around, being an expert and failure. He considers himself a failed writer, and I loved the way he framed that. Like, he embraces it and he says, I am happy to be a failed writer, because being a failed writer got me to where I am now as as a making money failed writer, basically, if I interpreted that properly. So I just love the frame. It's a blog post, and it's in the Chit Chat team, I think. And Crystal posted a link to it after someone else. I can't remember who posted a link that just didn't work. So
what was just a title keyword?
Just look for 2 days ago or yesterday, Chuck Wendig blog post. I can't.
Yeah, it's
in the Chit Chat. It's in the Chit Chat.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's good. It's fun. Anyway, the difference in language choices between men and women, it is true. It is true. Anyway, there's lots of interesting there around how we see the world differently too. So, okay.
Got lots of practicing to do.
We all do, and we will continue to. Bonnie, Marianne.
Yep. Last night with Eileen, we were talking about Crystal was saying, sometimes you have a story idea that's so important to you that even though you've overcome your self-doubt about your ability to write it well and properly, it has been sort of conquered. It bubbles up again because something is more important to you. And Eileen was saying, maybe we don't just have one story idea, but we can write the same story multiple times, and it'll come out differently each time, and it's never too late to do it justice if that's something that you're snagging on. Yeah.
Laura Baker has a fantastic course that I took a number of years ago, and I was actually just emailing with her this week because I wanted a quote from her for my book. And one of the things, so I took this course 4 or 5 years ago, and the thing that I remember, the big takeaway was that as a writer, I'll speak in the I, but she was, sharing this with everybody in the course. We have something that we feel purpose about, I guess. And so as a writer, when I finally accepted that I'm writing a theme, like everything that I care about researching and writing is all on this theme of women's sexual empowerment, basically, in a rough nutshell. Even the silly novel that I wrote is around women having control of their body. And it's an interesting thing. So she's just basically said that same thing. This is where we write. And the story could be about one time about dragons and another time about.
Yeah, Bonnie's theme is
Yeah.
the same.
So yeah, but it's going to have this core theme that goes through it, because that's what our purpose is to write. And think.
Yeah.
And that's why this philosophical mumbo jumbo hit me, because I realized I'm actually engaged in this discourse in my own way, in my own limited way. The stories that I choose to write, and the reason I'm writing them, is a part of this larger phenomena.
Yeah.
It all relates to our existence and our humanity and our situation in our lives and in society in a larger sense. And so regardless, whether you're male or female, and or whatever that theme is that you keep revisiting through your stories, whether you're Jonathan Franzen or Ian McEwan or one of us, everybody's got the thing, that they're chewing on, and they spend their entire life chewing on. And we learn through our writing too, you know, it's an evolution. And I think I was reading something maybe about Derrida, who was saying, you don't know what you're going to say before you start writing. You write in order to find out what you are trying to say.
Yeah.
And that is a lifelong process. So you can never really doubt yourself, because the process is genuine and unique to you, and other people's opinions of it are largely irrelevant. So, I mean, if you're only concerned with the external or the material, then why are we doing this anyway? This weird, abstract, intellectual thing that we do every day.
Hard thing. Leslie, all your stories are about women and girls finding their inner strength and self-worth. Bonnie, do your stories all have a theme that you can connect to?
Yeah, it's all about victims finding the strength to overcome and become the strong people they really are, instead of wallowing in the victim status.
I see a lot of similarities between all of our work.
And mine is about knowing yourself and having the courage to be yourself, regardless of what, you know, the consequences are, or the voices that you hear, or the lies that you tell yourself because of what society has set up, whether it's your parents or the patriarchy, or the feedback you get, you know, whether that's through physical abuse or discrimination in the workplace or anything else, right? It's about listening to yourself and being true to that, so that you can have the fullest experience of being human.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's just romance, nothing serious.
Right. It's just romance, nothing serious, but so serious and so important.
Yeah.
It is. So, okay, I'm going to wrap this up because 49 minutes feels like the right amount of time for an office hours.
Anybody want to discuss
too long?
20th century philosophy?
Just right.
Go on.
And thank you for showing up. Thank you. So we'll see you over in the GLIP community. And Eileen will be back, your regular programming coming back the next time. I think it's next, whatever it is, Tuesday evening or something.
Yeah. And would you be able to do a session one time on how people can go about creating positive affirmations? Like, is there a way we could do kind of like a workshop on that, where people would say, hey, this is what you're working on, I can't get past this, what would be a positive affirmation? And
are you able to make it to tomorrow's mastermind group?
I am.
Okay. So
basically, is that where we do that? I was just wondering if it might be a good exercise one time to record for people who...
Well, if you're willing to record this tomorrow, then we can absolutely do that. And in terms of leading it, well, it's a mastermind group, so you are as equal to leading it as anybody in the group, Bonnie. So if we want to focus on that, do you want to send me a little blurb about what you want to focus on, and I will put that in GLIP, or you can just put it in GLIP. Either way.
I was just thinking that there's standard things that we all struggle with. Yeah. And some people come up with affirmations and others can't get past it. You know, like there's the basic ones, like, you know, I'm not a good enough writer. Some people just add the yet and they're fine, but other people that's not enough. So I just figured that our hive mind might come up with some affirmations that really resonate with people and might help.
I think it's a great idea, and I would love to tackle that. Okay, so I will post that then as the idea or as the focus for tomorrow's mastermind group.
Okay.
And we will record it. So the last two we haven't recorded, but we'll record this. And Leslie, look forward to seeing you. I hope that you have a lovely day with your mom. Marianne, thank you for popping in.
And being complicated.
Next time, leave half your brain at the door.
Well, I didn't get to bed early enough because of all that. So right today yet, because I slept too long.
Thank you, Donna. That was great. I learned something great today. So
good.
Good.
Yay, Leslie. Okay. See you all soon.
Bye. Bye, Bonnie. Bye, Marianne.